Hey everyone, we're back. Okay, I'm kidding. It's Sonia here with the Fresh Approach show, and I hope you're doing well. We have a very special guest with us today. So we're gonna tap into that sooner rather than later, and I know you're absolutely gonna love today's heart to heart. You know me, I don't even have a title before we start most of these. We see what comes up, the feeling, the sensation should certainly be two friends having coffee. So grab your coffee, grab your water, grab your tea, get yourself cozy, or, you know, press play while you're doing the dishes. We know how life happens. We're never listening to these when we're just sitting still, right? We're always doing something and our mind has gone elsewhere. So this is a heart to heart. And for those that are new, depending on how you've come across this, a heart to heart means there is a video component on my YouTube channel. It's fascinating to have this going while you're listening to the message. You can see some of our show and tells. You can see some of our reactions more than just hearing the influences or the influxes in our voice. And honestly, you get to see how beautiful my guest is today, Dr. Susie. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sonia. I'm so excited to be talking to you and your audience today. My name is Dr. Susie Mierzwik, and I have an honorary doctorate in humanitarianism, and I am very excited to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. You and I were talking off camera, and I don't want to jump into where we left off. So before we do that, can you please tell everybody listening to this a lot more about you than what you just said? What brought you to where you are today? Let's just jump right there.
That's a good question, Sonia. And as you know, life is a long and winding road. So, just in a brief nutshell, I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 26 years. I also worked about 10 years in corporate finance. I have an MBA. And after I retired from teaching, I went into my own business as an entrepreneur, and I help people with health concerns to get rid of pain and every other kind of issue that bothers them, but without drugs. That's part of my own journey, and that's another topic for another day. But I'm also an author and speaker, and I believe we met on ISN, which has been a wealth of connections.
Yeah, let's talk about connections. I mean, it's a small world at the end of the day. And you brushed upon this about how life is very twisty and turny, and I'm pretty sure you caught my instant reaction when I'm like, tell me about it. I mean, sometimes it feels like we're just doing a continuous cha-cha, right? One step forward and two
Yes,
steps back.
good analogy.
If we can't roll with the punches, we're not doing ourselves any service. Like we are doing ourselves more of a disservice than a service if we can't learn to roll punches. And I've been in corporate Canada for over 30 years. I too am an entrepreneur. I too am a health coach. And by sharing this, we're letting our audience know about co-collaboration, about coming together. And ISN is a venue to bring people together, to bring people together that whose paths may never otherwise cross. Now, I say that lightly because I truly believe, and I'd love to hear your 2 cents on this, but that if you always meet the people you're supposed to meet, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So
And there's
ISN,
no coincidences.
there's no coincidence. Well, I don't know. I think a couple of coincidences lead to serendipitous moments, and their magic begins. ISN, International Speaking Network. So this is a great way to bring like-minded souls together who are interested in some sort of speaking, whether it's podcasting, whether it's public speaking, whether it's workshops and delivery in those contexts. So yes, we have those parallels. Ultimately, though, we are bringing our life experiences to the table. Ultimately, your experience although we have walked a lot of the same paths, and I know you don't know it yet, but I've picked up on it already, our experiences are totally different. And this is some of what I want to expand on a little bit today. We're going to be expanding on so many different things, but we're both authors. We both love to do podcasts. We're both coaches. We've both been divorced. We've both had to pick ourselves up and wring ourselves out and try to figure out which way is north. Unlike you, I don't know if we got this far, but I got to do that journey twice. It's a journey I would not wish upon my worst nightmare, depending on the situation. Like okay. So I've heard many people say, "Oh, I know somebody that does just that. They do exactly what you do. They're offering the exact same thing." I just saw your face. Let's talk about what just came up in your head there, Susie.
Well, even if they do the exact same thing, the expression, the information, the experience is going to be totally different. We're both authors, but we both have totally different paths in life and journeys. However, there are little key nuggets that we can share together that we also share with our public experiences,
Mhm.
helping people to navigate life.
Well, and that's exactly it. Your tips and tricks are curated from your living example. And those in your circle are watching your living example and they're watching you pursue and persist and continuously proceed to that next chapter over and over and over again from being a teacher to being in finance to being adaptable to being an entrepreneur to navigating life pre-divorce to post-divorce. All of these are completely different variables. It's not the same side of one coin.
Hmm.
Your experience brings you the necessary wisdom that you now bring to the table. So, if you were to go back and talk to the younger version of you, what would you say?
I would say, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. That's a big one, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is a big
So,
one.
it is a big one, and I don't bring this up very often, but it's perfect timing for today. Part of my journey over the last couple of years, one of the benefits is that I have found faith again. Um, for my own free will, from my own free will, I now read the Bible app every day, and that is exactly today's message, if you can believe it. I read it, it went
Wow.
in my head, and all of a sudden it's coming out now. And I had this conversation with somebody earlier, and it's like, how do you prepare for podcasts? Or I'm like, everything I read, everything I do, the information comes out at the right time. The information
Right.
shows up at the right time. And with you saying that, there are no coincidences, which you said, but it's a series of moments that feel like they're coincidences, just like this one right now. Feels like
Hmm.
it's a coincidence. But we really, at this point, know not to worry, don't we?
Hmm.
We know that we're going to be carried through. We know that things are going to work out, probably. Well, in all
Right.
honesty, even better than what we've expected.
Yes.
And it's letting go of the need to worry. How does that show up in your book?
Well, I'll tell you, after I read my book, or towards the end of it, I realized that there were three key components that helped me at all I guess the crossroads of my life that I call the three keys to survival when your life raft hits the rapids. And
I
I'm
like
going to be
that.
making, yeah, I'm going to be making a presentation on that this Wednesday in person. And I actually have a picture of a lifeboat, going through the rapids. And so My three keys, Sonia, are look in, look out, and look up. And I found that these are the three keys that help me navigate all the narrows, the waterfalls, the rocks, and every time that I was in a tight place. And do you want me to expand on those three keys?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to, so perfect. Thank you.
So, anyway, so the first key is looking in. So, for instance, when I found myself divorced in 1997, you could have blown me over with a feather. I was in such a state of shock. I didn't know it was coming. I didn't anticipate it. I was just in it for the long haul till death do you part, and then the screen comes down. But here it was like, what? After almost 24 years, he hands me the divorce papers and says, sayonara.
Mm.
I couldn't believe it. So the first step was like looking in to see, like, wow, what did I miss? Why didn't I see this coming? Why couldn't I prepare for this huge upheaval in my life?
Are we ever prepared?
No. And then I feel like the same experience happened when I hit a bump in the road during my corporate career. One day, my boss came in and said, "Oh, your department is being disbanded." And I had no anticipation, no clue this was happening. So I looked in and I said, well, I know it wasn't my fault because I came to work every day. I never got reprimanded. I never got, any censuring or anything. So I said, wow, what's that? So I looked in and I said, well, let me go see the vice president, who I didn't know. And I was just a young woman at the time. She said, if your boss doesn't like you, you have to leave. So this was information, but I didn't blame myself. I didn't blame the company. I didn't say, oh, it sucks to be me. I have bad luck. No, I just analyzed it from the inside, you see? So that's the first thing we have to do. We have to see, well, like, okay, something happened to me. I didn't anticipate it. I didn't want it. I didn't look for it. But there's no sense in pointing fingers and placing blame. You have to look inside and see, well, what tools do I have in my toolbox? Where am I right now? So that I can navigate to the next destination without being hysterical and, not mindful. So then the next tool that I realized after I reviewed my whole life was we have to look out. So in the case of the corporate upset, I looked out to the vice principal, I mean the vice president of the division, and I said, "Well, why did this happen?" So instead of saying, "You guys did this to me," or "Did I get cut because the economy?" Blah blah blah, I looked out. In the divorce scenario, I looked for a divorce recovery group. I knew I would need to have some peeps by me to navigate this rocky passage, you see. And then the third principle is look up. So even when I was a young woman and I had had my first child, I was hospitalized for 3 weeks. The doctor said, you're going to be in the hospital for 3 weeks. My husband was in the military. They wouldn't give him any time off, and I had no relatives. So what did I do? I said, okay, God, this one's on you. You got to help me because
Yep.
there's no earthly help for me. Well, the next day, somebody came from my church and volunteered to take care of my newborn, which she did for 3 weeks. You see? So, and then in the case of another corporate upset, um, I was not the next job, I was not progressing as I thought I should with an MBA. So I said, what's going on here? Do I not have the skills I need to progress in this environment? And I had a dream, and there was a ship going out of the dock, and the sign on it said, you're missing the boat. So then I said, oh my God, this is a sign. I'm supposed to go in another direction. So I went outside to a career counselor and I said, okay, tell me, am I in the right position for my skills and talents? After the assessment, she said, teaching and sales, teaching and sales. So that, and there's the boat saying you're missing the boat, the sign. You see what I mean? So putting all things together, looking in, what skills do I have? What skills do I lack? Looking out, is there somebody that can guide me? And then looking up, God, are you leading the way?
Okay, so important. All of this is so important. Like, let's go to looking in. You had made a comment. First of all, thank you for sharing that with us. We're going to break it down a little bit further just to make sure that our audience has clarity here because you're not doing these things unless you're emotionally sober to do these things. You have to go through those trenches first, at all. You're not going to show up tomorrow and start to do these one, two, three. You
Yes.
have to learn. I've had multiple corporate upsets, but yet I still put my foot in the corporate field every once in a while and I smack
Mhm.
myself afterwards because it's not where I belong and I know that. Not in the capacity that I've been in. It's more the workplace wellness where I belong. My leadership, my knowledge, my creativity doesn't fit in a box like they like. Okay.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind. You really need to be emotionally sober to be able to take a bird's eye view and not take things personally. You know, The Four
True.
Agreements is an amazing book and it talks about, one of the things, one of the agreements is not to take anything personally, but you don't start there. You
Mhm.
evolve there.
True.
It's easy to ask, what did I miss? It's easy to ask, how is this my fault? But one of the key components that you had mentioned is not being the victim. It is too
Yes.
easy to be the victim. And once we start in that victim story, it's hard to get out. It can take
Mhm.
years to get out of that victim story because you're letting other stories compound that original story.
Mhm.
You haven't done the work yet. You haven't peeled back enough layers of the onion yet,
Mhm.
of your soul yet to progress.
That's true. That's true. And you're right. Those three keys didn't come to me overnight like boom. Now I can write them down on paper. No, this was because of years of going to therapy, group therapy, divorce recovery, Bible study, reading extensive books on codependency and boundaries and unhealthy relationships and learning all these things that I didn't know prior.
Yeah. And everything that you said, all of those steps that you just shared, whether it is going to Bible study. That's a great, for those that have never done it, it's been part of my experience over the last year, and I will
Mhm.
do it again in a heartbeat. It's kind of like group therapy with a bunch of
Yes.
like-minded souls. If you've ever been in a
Right.
book club, same thing. You read you
Hmm.
talk about the book for 1 minute, and then the rest of it is about the book, but how it connects with you in your personal life. And now you're building these bonds with people. And I want to be clear, if your heart is in it, I don't care if it's an AA meeting, I don't care if it's Bible study, it doesn't matter what it is. There are Zoom and virtual options. You don't have
Hmm.
to be face to face if you're not ready.
Yes.
Show up for them. Get
Hmm.
involved because that leads to the next step. And that next step is looking outwards for support. And again, not everybody is going to have the support that you want or need.
Definitely true.
You need that right support, that
Hmm.
perfect fit that's meant for you.
Yes. And we need somebody to hold us up when we're feeling broken. And I'll give you an example. In my own biological family, I didn't have anybody I could call. In the example of my newborn, there was no relatives. My husband was in the Navy. He couldn't get any time off. So I had to look out, you know. And then at other times, I also had to look out after the divorce because my sister said, well, if you had been a better wife, you wouldn't have left, even though he was grazing on green grass for a long time, you see. And I had to find supportive people. So I went to a divorce recovery group. But you know, Sonia, timing is everything. The first divorce recovery group I went to, I was like a fish out of water. I didn't feel divorced. My ex was saying, well, maybe we'll get back together. Maybe we'll work it out. So here I was in a group with other people that said they were divorced. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But 6 months later, when he showed no interest in repairing and working on it, and I prayed to God. I said, God, you know what? I know I've been praying for this for 6 months, but you're not showing me your plan in this old marriage. I said, okay, God must have another plan. So I walked through the door, which in my mind was a fiery door because you don't know what's on the other side. You can't go back or you're already feeling the fire. So you have to walk forward, not knowing where you're going, you see.
But it's such
But
as life.
yeah.
Susie, such is life, right? We want, okay, life trips us up a little bit. When we're children, we have somebody to walk in front of us, or at the very least, alongside of us, right?
Right.
Whether it's mates at school or again at church or maybe in your family or cousins, we're not normally alone when we're a child within a certain period of time. And then we're in school, so we've got that social. But suddenly you turn 18 and that social circle's gone.
Hmm.
Unless you've done a really good job of building and nurturing those connections as you've evolved, which you and I both know again at this point in our lives that nobody tells you to do that. So you don't do that necessarily.
Hmm.
We don't always, unless you're in a group, unless you're in a community, we don't always have that looking out. We don't set ourselves up for that. I
Hmm.
remember when my oldest daughter graduated high school. It was maybe 2 weeks after, so the fun was done. The sleeping in was done. And she was working part-time at a Dollarama. And she looked at me and said, Mom, is this all there is to life is work and go home, work and home? And I'm like, yeah, there is. That's it. So you played guitar at school, so pick up your guitar lessons. You were
uh,
part of volleyball. So this is why I had you connected in all of these activities. And it wasn't even that many because I had three kids close in age. So it was like one each kind of deal. But
hmm.
she did guitar at school and she did wrestling. And I said, this is why I've always encouraged you so you can continue those things. Well, at 20, she'll be 28. Has it been 10 years? I guess she'll be 20. She's 27 now. And she still doesn't have any of those extracurriculars in her life. And how many of those things did you and I just mention are
Hmm.
critical to survival? And we first notice this lookout period, this lookout piece as a new mom.
Hmm.
When the community shows up, or if they show up, or it used to be a welcome wagon, you used to get some sort of hi, we're from the community, one way, whether it's the doctors, the nurses, or you would join some kids' preschool activity to get to know the other moms. There's some sort of community to build. So,
Hmm.
and if I could give everybody one takeaway, the first piece to look in, you're going to beat yourself up for quite a while before you progress. Let that be part of your story. Own
Hmm.
it. Because if you don't own it, it'll take twice as long to get through it.
That's true.
Isn't that the truth? I had a coach
Yes.
say to me, I'm like, I'm having a bad day. I don't understand why this, and this is going on. And this was about maybe even, no, this would have been years ago. And she looked at me, or she didn't look at me. She's like, Sonia, I want you to think about that for a second. Are those truly not your qualities when they're really a part of who you are? You just don't want to accept them? Ouch.
Wow.
Right? We
Hmm.
want to accept the
The
light
good.
qualities, the good, the brightness. We rarely want to recognize our shadow
Right.
qualities, the
That's
things
true.
that help us evolve.
Hmm.
This is where your knowledge, your thirst for knowledge has stemmed from. So
Yes.
we're going to beat ourselves up on that first step looking in, and eventually we're going to
Hmm.
push past that. We won't push past that until we own all of our emotions. The
Hmm.
second thing, that lean out for support, critical. I
Yes.
would now you correct me if I'm wrong. These are your words. You're the expert in your delivery. Would you say that is the most important step?
Yes, it is. But I still have to say we do need to look in because if we're only outward focused, we haven't dealt with any of our shortcomings.
Yeah, we haven't done the work.
Right.
The good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, this is a
Right.
perfect time for me to show my book. I
Oh,
wasn't going to, but
yes.
we were talking about it. But for those that are familiar, it's Your Story Matters. It's a women's self-love, self-awareness workbook. There is never a wrong time to work on this, but a perfect time
Hmm.
is when you need to go inwards and learn how to love yourself again. And I want to tap into this third point before I go over more. This third point about looking up. Now, you know how you said to me, I don't know, don't remember if it was off camera or on camera, that you don't believe in coincidences necessarily?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm about to challenge you with coincidence number two on our call.
Okay.
Whether it's a coincidence or a bunch of moments that connect the dots to something else, which for me leads to serendipitous moments. Of all days, and you had said something when you had brought this up. So look out. Sorry, look up is looking to above for spiritual guidance, whatever that looks like.
Hmm.
And I didn't write down what you had shared with me, but it made me think of what I wrote down today. And it's very interesting that my throat chakra all of a sudden is giving me a hard time as I go to say this. Um, Reveal to me my perfect self-expression and show me which talent I am to make use of now. Please use me in a way that delights my mind, body, and soul. So you had made a comment about not knowing which direction to take and not knowing the right step.
Hmm.
The right step will only be revealed once you take a step. And you
Yes.
can't take a step until you change the way you feel about yourself. So you
Hmm.
are ready to handle more of the same because no, there's no guarantee that's changing. That's not up to us to when things change. You could be full of light and love today, but if you've been meditating or if you've been working out of desperation for the last 6 months, one day of happiness isn't going to change the course.
No.
So, but if you don't have support, and support is that person pulling you along gently without realizing it, keeping you on the wagon instead of off the wagon, keeping you open at Bible study instead of shutting down because something's uncomfortable. To look up and to have a request such as reveal to me what you want me to do. What is my perfect self-expression? Am I supposed to be teaching? Am I supposed to be in corporate finance? Am I supposed to be in sales? Am I supposed to be an entrepreneur? This, for me, is the icing on the cake. I would love to hear your 2 cents. I mean, I know these are all yours, but this was my take
Hmm.
on it. And
Well, I think one thing I just want to reiterate, and that is you have to take a step. We don't know where all the steps of our journey are going, but it is important to take a step. So in my own case, when I took the step of can I go see the vice president, that was a big step because I was just a little peon. But I thought, well, if they already told me my position is washed up, why not go see the vice president? You see? So I wasn't afraid of that. And when my husband told me he was gone, I didn't try to beg him to stay and say I was going to change or anything like that. I said, "Well, this is where we are. So now what do I do? You know, you can't run backwards. When the other job didn't seem to be working out for me, I said, well, maybe there's some skills, qualities, traits, or whatever in me that aren't that suitable for corporate. I didn't blame myself, you see, but I said, maybe it's just not the right place.
Mhm.
And then I got the confirmation from the career counselor because that's looking out. And she said, your gifts are in teaching and sales. And it was voila. Now I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. And then when I saw the words in my dream, you're missing the boat, it was like, okay, step one, two, and three. This confirms I'm moving in a new direction, 180 degrees different, but I moved. I started out small. I worked as a substitute teacher every day because I wanted to make small steps forward rather than saying, okay, I'm ready to teach first grade, you see. But by doing those small steps, it made confirmation in my mind that, wow, this was a career I was excited about. I could feel my giftedness. I could pour myself into it, you see. So that's why the little steps are necessary.
They are all, and I know you and I have expanded to help everybody, but the little steps are everything. It's that 1% difference day upon day upon day. When I'm working with a client and they've lost 60 pounds, the story I want them to tell themselves is that they've actually lost 1 pound 60 times.
Wow.
And that changes the way they look at things,
Right.
right? Anybody can lose a pound.
Mm-hmm.
So it's reframing.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's a lot of reframing that happens when we look back.
True.
Now, do you recall what we were chatting about off camera when I said to you, "Oh, wait, we got to go record"? Did we hit it? Was it about your
Uh,
book?
well, we did mention the book. I did mention the 3 steps of recovery for any of life's challenges because I think these are human changes that we all need to experience. The looking in, the looking out, the looking up. So it doesn't matter if you're in a financial challenge, a medical challenge, emotional challenge, divorce challenge. I've had betrayal in my family. A lot of people have had loss of a child or a family member. Whatever the challenge is, all those steps are still applicable.
They are 100%. And that's why I love how we broke them down for people. What else would you say to the younger version of you?
Life is exciting. Don't be afraid to try new things. Whether it's a
Okay?
career, moving to the other side of the country, which I did. Um, Life is very exciting. Don't hold on too tightly to the past because we came out of the past, but we do not need to stay in the past.
100%. The only day that matters is today. Yesterday
Hmm.
doesn't exist.
Right.
Sorry, yesterday is a dream. Yeah, they say yesterday doesn't exist anymore and tomorrow's not here. Tomorrow
Not
may never
promised.
come. Yeah, it's
Might
not
never
promised.
come. Exactly, exactly. And another thing that I learned by writing my story, I saw all the flaws in my family because I came from a dysfunctional family. But at some point in the writing journey, I was able to feel forgiveness in my heart for all the shortcomings that happened in my family because now I was looking at it from like 3,000 feet, like you're in an airplane. And I saw that they were all parts of dysfunctional families going through history. So that
Interesting, isn't
was
it?
very liberating.
I find that fascinating because did our foremothers even know about generational curses? Were they even aware? Perhaps if you're indigenous, Oh no, I'm screwing. I'm
Indigenous?
tired.
Oh, indigenous?
Yes,
Yeah.
perhaps because the way they do a lot of their teaching. Um, but most of us don't realize that. So I am lucky enough that I still have my mom, and she's learning a little bit more as I'm learning because, I'm trying to correct their language.
Uh-huh.
For example, my dad has his own money story, but that money story's obviously been carried down to the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to love to sing this song. We ain't nothing but poor folk. A mama and a papa are poor folk. And he would go on and on and on and on and on about it. And I'm like, Dad, you're
Oh.
telling the kids, my kids, that, your story of being poor is still true. And I know it's a fun-loving song, but the
Uh-huh.
kids at this age in their 20s should not know the words to that song. Like, we're so worried about tiptoeing on people and not hurting their feelings and using the right pronouns. Which who cares? Sorry, who cares? Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
call you by your name. That's normally
Uh-huh.
what I do. Whereas I think it's just as important to step up and say, that is your story, not my story. And I don't want that to be my children's story.
Mm-hmm.
We don't
Yes.
stop and separate those lines. I remember now what I was going to ask you about the book. So we were talking off camera, and I don't normally spend too much time with my guests off camera because I love the conversations to flow naturally on camera.
Mm.
Susie had mentioned her strategy for writing her book, and I need to share with you. This is coincidence number 3. Okay, guys, we spoke for 10 minutes, not even before. We never met before today. This is my third coincidence on this call. Susie, right here in front of me is a journal. I've been going through and recording or writing what I have in here so I can start my next book based on my journal entries from my journals that I had that are at least 10 years old in here.
Well,
Isn't that
Sonia,
exactly what you just did?
yes, because during COVID, I had the opportunity to go through a banker's box of journals that I had carried with me across the country to different states when I moved throughout my life. These journals went back as far as third grade. You know, those little diaries that you have in elementary school. At least we did back then with a little
With a
key.
key? Yeah.
With a little key. I kid you not. So I had journals from elementary school, high school, college, throughout my adult life. Not every single day, but almost every single year. And when I looked back at these journals, they confirmed what I felt like inside. That little broken person that had no voice, like a little bobblehead on a body, and nothing inside because we weren't allowed to have any emotions back then. I always say I was raised where children were to be seen and not heard, and your voice wasn't wanted. They told you to be quiet, don't ask questions, and
Yeah.
we'll give you an opinion if we want one. And then after I got married, I felt like, okay, so we went down the aisle. Da 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 da. Okay, now the curtain comes down, and like your daughter said, what's next? I had no clue. You see, so I didn't have any blueprint,
We don't.
and
We
making
don't
it up
always.
on your own with walking through all the rocks and crannies and falling down into the gopher holes and all that of life, you come out bruised and battered.
And that's the thing. Nobody promised us a blueprint.
No.
They promise us some sort of structure of information that we don't really think we're using for 18 years, but yet no blueprint with how to live life, especially with the differences with what's being taught in school. Now there's no economic or there's no home economics,
Right, right,
the
right.
essentials
Yeah,
that
there's no life skills.
there's no life skills being taught anymore unless maybe you've signed up for that class if the school offers it.
Right,
So there's no blueprint, and even those life skills are not up to date with
right.
the realities of a working family and raising kids, or
Mhm.
maybe a divorced parent doing it all on their own.
Exactly.
I was chatting with my daughter, and we are very fortunate that I am still best friends with my grade 9 bestie.
Wow.
And she has a daughter the same age as my youngest. So they're close and we're close. And I was telling my daughter, I said, it's very interesting because I feel that and I was this person too, she's very much in her masculine energy. She works all day, she comes and she's in sales. Sales is very much a masculine job. Teaching is a lot more feminine. It goes
Hmm.
back eons and eons and eons. But the skills that were originally taught through teaching are very much feminine energy. It's not the do, hustle.
Hmm.
It's community, it's different, it's being.
Hmm.
So that do mentality of, giving versus ever knowing how to receive, and all of the other elements that come with being in your masculine energy, a lot of society is in that space right now. It's not just her coming home after working all day and doing all of the work at home. It's a lot of people that are living in that space right now, which means more people need the blueprint to accept who they are, to transfer that masculine do energy into a softness again, getting that balance of yin and yang back into society. So when they can look inwards and look outwards and look upwards and share that with others, their friends, indirectly, their family, their kids, their grandkids, they're teaching a whole new blueprint
Hmm.
without
Right.
realizing it.
Yes. And you know what? I've realized that there's so much difference in between how I was raised, how I raised my daughters, and how my granddaughter is being raised. So, for example, we were not allowed to have feelings, at least in my family. You're just like, here's your dinner, here's your homework, here's your clothes, this is what you have to do. Boom, that's it, right? My granddaughter's being raised with my daughter encourages her to see her feelings, to notice her feeling, express her feelings. And this was hard for me as a grandma because I was used to, telling children what to do. And my daughter had to tell me, you have to ask her if she wants to have a hug or kiss. You have to ask her if she wants to do X, Y, or Z. Where this was such a huge change, such a huge transformation, it took me a long time to wrap my head around it and get okay with that. That it wasn't a rejection of me. It was just a whole new paradigm.
It is. And I truly believe we are a lot more open at receiving that kind of feedback and making those changes than our parents were.
Hmm.
And I think our future is going to be a lot more open too. They just need to remain open to the fact that we were not all raised the way they are raising their kids.
Hmm.
And that has a big difference. There is a
Yes.
major disconnect between the grandparent and the grandchild.
Yes.
I think probably
Extremely.
more than any other generation.
Yes, I'm sure because like my kids at the beginning when they were young didn't have computers and phones and all that. But now babies are using iPads,
Yeah, like
you
my
know?
grandson knew how to use an iPad, and I'm like, whoa, bud, that's kind of
Yeah,
cool. Like, and it's great because we are seeing how smart we are at such a young age. And we saw
right.
this through sign language and the different things. But we also need to let them be kids. So I was at someone's
Mhm.
house the other day, and I actually had the polar opposite experience of, I'm like, oh, is your son not feeling well? Because he was home. One was young, too young, and one was old. She goes, no, if they don't feel like going to school, we don't make them. They're allowed to take time off whenever they want. I just saw the look on your face.
And she wasn't homeschooling them?
And that's what I said. I said, oh, and you're not homeschooling? And she's like, no. And I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, that is actually very cool.
Mhm.
We have these vacation days in life that happens when we're
Uh-huh.
in corporate that we're never taught how to use either.
Yeah.
So take our previous generation
Yeah.
and vacations and holidays my dad never took. He worked 24/7 for the
That's
family,
true. Yeah, they
right?
just
If
got off of Christmas and Thanksgiving.
or if we went camping, it would be so he could still go to work each. Like, I do not remember my dad taking holidays and vacations. He would accumulate them all and maybe got paid out. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I never even thought about that, but
So we were
that's
not
true.
taught how to,
Yeah.
and I remember I felt guilty taking vacations when I was in my 20s and third. I was never taught how to walk away for a day,
Hmm.
recharge, and come back.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's
Isn't that
very
in, like,
true.
so I looked at it
Yeah.
originally the way you did. Those were the same
Hmm.
thoughts. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is probably a huge service that
Hmm.
she is doing.
Yeah. More work-life balance is
Hmm.
coming about when that didn't exist in the last generation. They just work, and then they died.
But that's all they knew too, right?
Hmm.
We just have to do that separating. That was them, this is us, and
Hmm.
this is them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have talked about so much today. Before we get
Very
ready to
exciting,
sign
Sonia.
off, thank
Okay.
you. What questions do
Oh,
you
it's
have,
my
or do you have anything
pleasure.
that you want to share?
Uh, well, you know what? If people would like to find out more about me, I think that it would be great for them to look at my website, which is maybe you could put it on your screen if you have that capability.
I don't,
It's
so you can
you
share
don't.
it, but we'll
Okay,
also put
but
it in the show
anyway,
notes.
yeah, they'll see my name in the background, and it's https susiemierzwik.com, just exactly as it is in my banner. Because on my website, they will see not only my best-selling transformational book, but I've also participated in 12 other books as a collaborative author. And
I've been
they'll
in
also,
five.
oh, that's good, but you're younger, so keep going.
Yeah, I've only
And I
been
also,
writing. It's only been 5 years for me, like you, since
that's
COVID started.
awesome.
I did all
That's
of this
awesome.
in the podcast in 5 years. So yeah,
Right. And speaking of podcasts, I have a lot of podcasts on my website that people can see, as well as my business for helping people get healthy without any drugs and chemicals using this LifeWave non-drug technology. And I have testimonials and lots of other goodies on there, and people can book an appointment with me on the Calendly. So yeah, they want to check it out. It's out
perfect. We're
there.
gonna have all of this wrapped up in a nice, pretty bow. We're gonna have the link to Dr. Susie's book and her website in the show notes. We're gonna have the link to my book, Your Story Matters, and the only other book I refer to is the Four Agreements, and I will make sure that link goes up as well because if you haven't read it, it is a must read on your book list. And I think that is it, guys. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know your favorite part of the show. Dr. Susie, thank you. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for sharing your
Thank you,
insight.
Sonia. It was a pleasure.
It was a great time. Thank you so much.
Have a great
And
day.
have a great day, everybody.